here. So we'll start alphabetically. Barbara Buffaloe is the first alphabetically, so you can give the initial 5-minute speech. And then the first person to answer a question will be Randy Minchew. All right, so Barbara, you've got this. I've got our
screen. I have the screen. Okay. All right, can everybody hear me okay? Nodding just works for me. Good. Okay, great. I set my timer too, so hopefully I'll stay on time. Well, thank you all for having me. Yes, Carl, there's been quite a lot of forums and I don't think we're done yet. I think, Randy, we have 3 or 4 more, but yeah. So again, thank you for having me here. I'm here today because I love Colombia, and I want to be our next mayor. And when I say that and I talk to groups, it's because we deserve a mayor that loves this community, but is also up for doing the work. And it is going to be work. For those of you who don't know me, a little bit of background, I'm originally from Springfield, Illinois. The joke is walk where he walked, because Lincoln is on everything back home. I came to Mizzou in 1998, and I came here because I fell in love with this town. The connections between the downtown and the campuses, it's seamless. And I felt that this community was more than just a college town. And the professors I had and the cultural activities that I participated in, it really cemented that Colombia is my forever town. My husband, Luke, and I, who, as some of you know, we chose Colombia as our forever town when he selected MU for medical school and the residency program he wanted to be a part of. Mizzou has one of the best family medicine departments. This is the nod to Wynn and Jack Caldwell. And Luke is a practitioner now in the family medicine department and serves on faculty for the medical school. We have 2 little Buffaloes and have chosen Colombia to be the community that we're raising them in. And we love it here. For the past decade, I have had the privilege of serving, working for the city of Colombia. I was our first sustainability manager. I started up the program, I created our budget, I understand how we work with the different city departments. And there at the city, I was in charge of our innovative ideas that look towards the future of our community and put into practice, like the strategies and actions that could help us lead to that vision. And I was, and I am building a Colombia that I'm leaving to my kids and to my grandkids. And I know that a lot of you are as well. And we deserve a mayor who celebrates what makes Colombia special. We're one of the first to embrace sustainability like no other Missouri town, having our renewable energy ordinance that required the step up in percentage of renewable energy in our portfolio. And no other candidate has a better sense of the roadmap that will lead Colombia to a more sustainable future. I can say that because I wrote it. The Climate Action and Adaptation Plan lays out a vision and strategy to address risks posed by climate change and also contributing to international efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And then the second thing when I say about why Colombia is special, we embrace the arts and cultural activities with the focus on opening up the opportunities to all. We were one of the first Missouri towns to have an Office of Cultural Affairs. We have our Percent for Arts program, which is now replicated in communities across the nation. And no other candidate has been more involved in the local art scene, like literally working for one of our biggest cultural events. I was True False's first events coordinator. And so when I think about these things, I think about we are special, but there's also things that we need to work on. And Colombia deserves a mayor with experienced leadership. I led the Office of Sustainability for 11 years and being that architect of those innovative cross-departmental initiatives. And we're in a time of transition. We're electing a new mayor. We just appointed a new city manager. And Colombia needs a mayor that has that institutional knowledge and knows how to get things done and how to navigate City Hall. We also deserve a mayor that has the trust of the city staff and our community and all our stakeholders. Now, I respect the professionals that work for the city of Colombia, and I have a reputation for knowing everyone's name. Everyone from the custodian at the health department to the IT help desk who work in the basement. And I've continued to be a sounding board for the current city manager and for the past city manager. And then besides city staff, I'm also friends and colleagues with people within the Chamber of Commerce, the development community, environmental community, community activists, all of that. And we deserve a mayor that has that experience of building those bridges and brings together those differing viewpoints to make decisions. And we need somebody that's also going to work on restoring civility to city council. Right now, there's a fracture in place, and we need somebody that's willing to work to bring people together. And I'm not talking like 7-0 votes. I'm just talking about at least understanding everyone's priorities and where they're coming from, and approaching the decisions and goals that we need to meet with that unity and that working together. And I think I have that experience and that skill set to lead us. And I'm just, we just need somebody who's listening with their whole heart, and they're going to put their whole heart into this. I have the energy to do it. I have the privilege of this will be my job, and that's my timer. So I'm stopping myself there. I'll be happy to answer other questions later.
Okay. All right, next we have Mr. Minchew. Where are you? I can't find you in the, oh, there you are. All right, it's your turn now.
Well, I've done enough of these forums. I don't think I need 5 minutes to accomplish this. The other night we had 30 seconds to answer questions, and that wasn't enough. 5 minutes seems like maybe too much for me. Cindy and I are originally from Houston, Texas. We moved here in 1994. I had a job that transferred me up to the region here. I had a 4-state territory where I was a salesperson. The job that I had, they restructured the company and laid off the sales staff. And we were here about 6 months. And I said, we're not moving home. We took our severance pay and we made our home here. We raised 4 kids here of our own. We raised 3 of my sister-in-law's kids who had a drug problem. So we put 7 kids through Rockbridge. I owned a company here called Swift Windows Doors and More. We had a company called the Scoop Frozen Custard Shop out by Daniel Boone. If you ever took kids out to get baseball, then you came and got some of our ice cream. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Because of my childhood, because of drug addiction early in my life, I started getting high when I was 10 years old, and had a wrecked household, was sexually abused, physically abused, had a suicidal mother. So it's a blessing that I sit here today, having come through all of that. So was not afforded the opportunity to get a formal education, but I'm a smart guy. I'm an energetic guy. And I thought, the only chance I have of making the kind of money I want to make is to be an entrepreneur. And some people who I tried to work for back then would have told you that it was because I was unemployable, because I thought I knew everything. But that's what I've spent my life doing, is being an entrepreneur. We've continued our work in the recovery world. I've been sober 46 years. We've helped hundreds and hundreds of people in the recovery world, in the homeless situations. We've had 2 recovery houses here in town where people could stay after they sobered up or come out of treatment, at Phoenix or at a Booneville. So we've had a sort of the spirit of community service, working in the recovery world our entire life. Never really thought about being a politician. I've never worked in the government. The only times I've been in City Hall were to get building permits or to try to get a business license, or if I had forgotten to pay my electricity bill, then I would have to go to the utility office. So I think that gives me a unique advantage, because I've been a business owner. After I sold my company, I had an opportunity after a couple of years of retirement to go to work as a business development for a local Colombia that has, I think we have 11 companies in 10 different states with about 700 employees. And so I do business development for that company. The skills required to do what I've done over time, the lessons learned from raising 7 kids and what they can teach you and how they can mold you. The diversity of my family now. My wife is Hispanic. 2 of my grandchildren are Black. My son-in-law is Black. So we have a multicultural. If you saw everybody here at my house on Christmas, you would think there's no way all those people are related. So there's dreadlocks and pierced noses, and it's just the best. So I have a unique understanding of that diversity. And I say it's the education of Randy Minchew that all of those people have helped shape me. But I bring that kind of leadership and that kind of understanding to city council. Without all of the inside knowledge, without any commitments to anyone there, there's no alliances between me and anybody on at the city. And I believe I have that ability to work with people, to see that the other city council members can get the things they need for their ward. My focus will be on a lot of the things you've seen in the paper already. A lot of the other forums have asked about. Public safety is one of the main things. Infrastructure is another. So I see my 30-second timer. I didn't think I could have talked for 5 minutes, but I just did. So thank y'all very much for the opportunity to be here today.
All right, thank you. All right, now it's time for questions, and I can recognize the people that ask questions by either holding up your hand, or if I don't see you because you are the video's not on, use one of those icons with a hand. All right, well, I see a couple of hands up already. All right, Sue or Herb Chillema, unmute yourself and ask your question within 30 seconds, please.
Being here, and thank you for running. What new initiative for the betterment of Columbia do you propose to embrace or lead beyond the positions, the good things that you may have done already and that are now rolling?
Well, I thank you, Herb. Now, Barbara can start this one because, or wait a minute, no, Randy starts this one. He was the second to start.
Well, appreciate the question. Thank you for that. I'm not sure if you'd call them initiatives, but I think we've got to look at our police force and the way they're paid. I think we need to look at moving their retirement plan back to what used to be a very attractive police force to work for. So that's one of the things that I'd like to do. Another thing, I think we've got some deferred infrastructure requirements, our water system. I've met with people about the water system, about our power grid. There seems to be some things that we have delayed or deferred that I believe they're not, they're boring kind of things, but I think we've got some infrastructure things that need to be brought back to the table.
Okay, thank you very much. And now, Ms. Buffaloe, would you like to answer?
Yeah. So thanks for the question, Herb. One of the things that I've seen other cities do that I think Columbia can do, and we've kind of talked about it, but never actually researched this, is a thing called an equity lens to our policy decisions and programs and plans that come through city council. So, right now you have first and third Mondays, council gets a packet, and in that packet are resolution, ordinances, bills coming forward, and it has a council memo attached to it. That council memo has a few check boxes on it, like what's the fiscal impact of this and where is it related to one of your strategic plans? Nothing happens with that data. It's not collected anywhere. It doesn't go into anything. Sometimes council members, no offense, Carl, but sometimes council members don't even read it. I'm sure you do, Carl. And what I think we can do is we hear about these unintended consequences of things that happen that are from decisions made at council. And I'm thinking if there's a way that staff, and I know this is possible, but it's going to take work, can kind of analyze some of the projects coming forward and give that information to council, we can make more informed decisions. An equity lens on this can have things like, or a triple bottom line process is what I was calling it too. It can tell us what's the financial impacts of this right now and of the people around as well as in the future. What's the environmental impacts? Like, is this going to have a negative effect on the neighboring homes or residential units or like I was trying to think of like other businesses. And then what's the impact on people, right? So like what's going to happen if you put this in? Is it benefiting one privileged group at the expense of one of our marginalized communities? And so having that information, I think will make us better policymakers and like restore that trust that's needed with the community. I got this. Leslie, I'm promising shorter council meetings. I'll be really quick on this.
All right, thank you. I saw David Luthold. Yeah, you had your hand up, David.
Oh, good. I wanted to ask, especially the candidates' views on refuse collection, and particularly ask them what they think of the using private enterprise instead of the city for refuse collection.
Okay, now Ms. Buffaloe is the first to start.
Yeah. Well, I have very strong opinions about this. I'm very much against privatization, and I'll tell you why. The example I give is that one of my colleagues down at the city of Springfield works in their environmental group. And when they look at their recycling rates in Springfield and the impact on their infrastructure for their trash collection, they have privatization. And they have 12 different companies providing that service. Those 12 different companies there's no rules on what days they can come down. So you could have 2 trucks coming down your road every day. I think about the fact that those private companies do not have to pay into our public infrastructure for supporting those roads. You don't have control over having to have recycling as a benefit required. And you also don't have control over how those people are paid. The average hourly rate for Springfield, Missouri for trash collectors is $10.25, which is way below a living wage. And if you think with the city of Columbia, we can do better about making sure that we're adequately paying our trash employees. We can do better about making sure we're providing a safer system for them, for these people that are going around every weekday, picking up from 900 homes a day. So we have that control and we can provide that system. We just need the leadership to get us there.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Minchew, your response?
I have publicly said that I would be a fan of looking at outsourcing of solid waste. But I'll say this, the goal is to effectively collect our solid waste from each home once a week. That's the goal. So to say that anything is off the table other than the goal of collecting the trash effectively once a week, to me would be irresponsible. Now, last Saturday, we met with the trash workers and they pointed out some things that kind of showed me maybe an error to what I had said publicly. And I was happy to hear that. Now, to me, it was new information. And so my statement back to them was, if you can effectively collect the trash from every home once a week, then I would be a fan of those people doing that collection. But it doesn't change what the goal is. And ultimately, we have to have the trash collected effectively once a week from every home. So if that includes whatever it includes, whether it's a hybrid system with roll carts and we get our own equipment and we do it ourselves as the city, or we outsource it, we've got to effectively collect that trash.
Okay, thank you. Let's see here. Mari or Carl had a question? Mari?
Yeah, we each have a question, but I put my hand up. My question has to do with an issue that's very important out here on the northeast side of town, and I think in much of the rest of the city, and that is public transit. And I've heard all of the candidates speak before, and I've heard all of the candidates for office talk about how this is a problem. But what I would like to ask is that you share your ideas about actual solutions to making our system more robust and making it available so that more people can effectively get where they need to go using public transit.
Okay. All right. Mr. Minchew goes first now.
Well, so one thing I would say is, and my wife reminded me of this the other day, just as far as using public transportation. When I grew up in Houston, when I first started going to after going to the detox meetings, I started going to regular program meetings as a teenager, and I would take the bus with 2 different truck stops to go to the meetings to get the counseling I needed to stay sober. So I'm a big fan of public transportation. I think the candidates, all of us, are a little bit short on the inner workings or the knowledge of what it takes to make it effective, because you'd have to go do an internal study with Public Works. One idea that was given to me that I think is worth examining, it would be to turn over the transportation to the economic development folks, and we would look at it as a benefit to students, as a benefit to new employment, or like, we've got all the new things coming in out on 3M, and we don't have bus systems out to it. Part of it is the economics. And so if it's under Public Works, it gets looked at one way. If it were under economic development, it might look completely different when we think about funding it. But we absolutely need to solve, or at least get about the business of trying to solve. And I'm sure the city has worked on this many times. That's why I hesitate to say that I could come in as some sort of expert, because I rode the bus when I was a teenager, that I could come in as an expert and solve it. So it seems to me it must be a very complicated issue. There's very smart people who've worked on this before. I just wonder if moving it out of Public Works purview might not help solve some of those issues.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Buffaloe?
Yes, so okay, well, this is Randy, where I can push back a little bit and say, like, actually, of the candidates, I probably do have a little bit more knowledge and information about how the transit system works. So I used to actually help them write their grants for getting additional funding for some of their equipment. And most recently, working with the state Division of Air Quality within Natural Resources for them to get more or less emitting buses as part of the VW settlement funds. And I'll tell you, some of the biggest problems, some of the biggest issues that transit suffers from is actually support or having enough drivers to provide the services. This, we talk about funding, we talk about fares, but at the end of the day, it's having enough people to drive the buses, which is why they restricted routes most recently. And so when you talk about how to encourage better transit, Marie, one of the things that I would want to do is to help elevate these positions, right? So they're pretty low paid wage jobs. So elevating the idea of like how we think about our classification and compensation plan to make sure that we're paying people a living wage to do the work. And then also to help flip the narrative within Colombia so that we actually view public transit as a talent attractor and an economic development attractive, as well as a social justice initiative. So, we have funding within the city budget, but we just need to make sure that we're spending our funding in a way that's serving the majority of our community, as opposed to just smaller, maybe privileged group that can find funding elsewhere for some of their projects. And then I think once we get there, in addition for this funding and finding it, we need to think about what does this system look like? And obviously it needs to have something like a 10-minute headway. So when you go out to catch the bus, it's going to come by. You don't have to have the app. You don't have to have the signs. So it's going to come every 10 minutes and it needs to go more places. And then that will increase our ridership.
Okay. Oh, well. Thank you. All right. Another question. I can't make my thing shut up. All right, another question. It was Carl that had a question. All right, Carl.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask you a question that I have not yet been able to answer. haven't been asked the question, and that is it's group dynamics on the city council. And although the mayor has, obviously the first among equals, it's 1 vote out of 7, and every action requires 4 votes. How do you see that in terms of achieving a majority consensus to make sure that that your agenda and the rest of the city's agenda moves forward?
Okay. Ms. Buffaloe, I think was
Yep.
the-
Yeah. So Carl, I think, so it's done through multiple ways, right? First is when elected, one of the first things I want to do is something that I feel like council used to do, and I know that the school board does, which is when we have new elected council members, y'all get together And it's kind of like a retreat, we can do it here or elsewhere. But then Carl, here's my brilliant idea. If we go somewhere else, we have that council member come here. So we don't get hit with, you're spending taxpayer dollars somewhere else, because we're going to have them come and spend it up here, and because we're better. Anyway, we can do it in town. But this idea of a retreat where you highlight the priorities of each council member, as well as the department directors, like what's coming up on the agenda that we need to be aware of? Like, where are you coming from on this? And what that's doing is helping build that relationship. Like, we don't have to vote 7-0, but at least I know where you're coming from with why you're bringing up an initiative or why you're asking particular questions. And that's creating that common ground of where we are and why we're here. And by doing that with departments as well, with the city manager and with the department heads, you're also aware of what's happening. Because right now, because we haven't had enough work sessions amongst council and staff, and then just council amongst themselves, you're finding out about projects that the city's been working on when they've been working on them for months, and we don't know about it. And so I think by having more of those frequent work sessions and working together, you'll see the efforts that are happening in the community, and then we'll like build from there. And then also I think the other thing is just treating everybody as a human and with respect, and knowing that they're adults and they're doing this with their whole heart. I think that right now you're seeing some, one person described it as, I feel like I'm sitting between two divorcing parents at the dinner table when they're at the dais. And so avoiding that by being mutually respectful of one another, and also being respectful of, I'm a timer too. That's okay. Where's this saying? Quiet.
Okay, Mr. Minchew, there you are.
Carl, I appreciate the question. I mean, I think diplomacy is one of those things that you learn over time. I think if you look at the 6 wards and the 6 council people that represent those wards, you're looking at people that are getting feedback, just like you do on Saturday mornings. You're getting feedback from your ward. And as mayor, you have to realize that those people need to get what they need done, what they feel like they need to get accomplished. And so in a way, the mayor, although the mayor is maybe the head of the council, really has to give the most, because all of those people need to get what they need for their wards. And so to me, I think it's a matter of, and I'll take a little bit of credit with 7 kids. I'm not saying that the council is like children, but getting people to get something accomplished, you give everyone the opportunity to be heard. And I'll use one example. After Pat Fowler had presented her plan to get 100% of the ARPA funds to go to the homeless projects, I called Pat Fowler the next day. I'm not the mayor, but as the mayor, that's what I would have done. And I sat down with Pat Fowler and I said, Pat, what do you need? I don't think you're going to get 100%. I don't think you'll get the council to vote your way. And in fact, she didn't. But what are you trying to get? Because if you look at it, Pat and her friends, or not her friends, but the people who are working on that, that's probably enough energy to make a lot of things happen. You just have to help them figure out what it is they need. So to me, it's just diplomacy. It's what I do now in business. I'm not saying it's the easiest thing in the world, but I think I have those skill sets.
Okay, thank you. Let's see here. See, Scott Crystal's hand is up.
And hi, well, first off, thanks both of you for taking the time to visit with us today. This is a very broad question, so there's no right, wrong answers naturally. What direction would you like to take Colombia to go to in the future? This is sort of an overall type of goal for what you would like your mayorship, for lack of a better word, to go. And this could be regarding growth, place in Missouri, place in the country.
Oh, all right. Mr. Minchew starts off.
Well, Colombia is growing, and I think we can all see that. There's more traffic. You see it everywhere. So to me, I think it's not necessarily a matter of where I want to see it go. I think it's a matter of funding the efforts, the infrastructure needs, putting those things into place, coordinating some of the things that we have happening. So if a neighborhood goes in, the school district knows that there's a school that needs to go out there, or that we make sure that fire stations go into neighborhoods sooner after they're built. so to me, it's really what I'd like to see is us solve some of our housing issues. We have a housing shortage. You can't get the price of housing down if you don't increase the inventory. It's a supply and demand issue. I think there's a few things that were put into place that probably have slowed that process down. So I think those things need to be resolved. But for me, I feel like we need to catch up with the growth that we're seeing and get some of those infrastructure things in place.
Oh, okay, thank you. Ms. Buffaloe?
Yes, so I think, Scott, for your question, where do I want to see us go, right? And I think the thing is with this is so this is my jam, right? Thinking about the future. What does Colombia look like? Like, how do we grow? Who do we want to be when we grow up? And so for me, I think about the idea of what opportunities do we have that maybe are unique to Colombia. And I think that's the sort of thing that we can start planting the seeds of now that maybe they're already planted, and then we can see them flourish. And so one of those is like what we do with economic development, right? So right now, the University of Missouri, they're funding a lot into like the next gen precision health. And so I think we have the opportunity of investing in like the entrepreneurs and the projects that might come from there, or like Missouri isotopes, right? The majority of like some of those cancer saving medicines that are happening here, like Missouri's research reactor. So what can we do like along 70, like the 70-63 interchange to support the growth of those businesses? Because, I always describe whenever I'm talking to people in other countries or other states, they're like, where's Colombia? And I'm like, we're halfway between St. Louis and Kansas City, right? I mean, that's the easiest way to explain where Colombia is to somebody that doesn't know Missouri. And so I think about that when I'm like, oh, we're halfway between St. Louis and Kansas City. We're this unique position of tying in these places that have fantastic, like Cerner Health in Kansas City, tying into this medical tech that we're seeing partnering with Columbia and the university's hospital and medical school. And then also, what are we pulling in from St. Louis and the entrepreneurs and some of the research happening in biotech? And what can we do here? So when I think about the future, I think about that idea that we're a city that's supporting like locally grown, locally owned projects. And then we're also doing it with a way that's thinking about its impact. So how we're growing, making sure people can get from point A to point B, and that we're walkable, livable, sustainable, all of that jam. I'm good.
All right, Mr. Minchew. Keep losing you. Oh, there you go.
I think I answered that. So.
Oh, you've already answered it. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble keeping my own mind straight. Okay, next question. I see Columbia, Missourian has a hand up. I don't know.
Hi,
Oh.
yes, thank you so much. Yes. So many community members are concerned with the lack of communication from council about things like ARPA funds, the last city manager search. As mayor, what would you do to try and resolve this lack of trust and transparency from the community?
Okay, then, Ms. Buffaloe.
Yeah, so thanks for that. So I think the city right now is attempting to get better about their communication outreach. Right now, I forgot the Be Heard. Is that what it's called? I just had this blanked moment. I think it's called Be Heard. Basically an online source where you can ask questions. They have the Ask Me Anything for the city manager, trying to utilize those sources. One of the things that become an issue within a community of our size is that you can get your information in a variety of places, right? There could be an interested parties meeting about a major development happening at the end of your street, but unless you look in the right place or we mail you something to your house, you might not know about it until the bulldozers show up. And so I think trying to centralize that system can be useful for the city so that you always know if you just want to know what's going on and go there, as well as pushing out the information to you will be good. The other thing when you talk about your question, Brooke, was also trust. And so when you want to have trust within the community about the projects you're doing or the decisions that are being made, you need to first ask, like, this is what we're thinking of doing. Are we on the right track? You need to make your decisions with all the information needs to be out there. And you need to follow up. So this is one of the things we're pretty good with asking. I always joked that it's like that Seinfeld customer service one where he's getting the car. He's like, anyone can take a reservation. It's the holding it that matters. And I think about that for the projects that we do. We can say we're asking people for their opinions on something, but it's the actual delivery of it and then letting them know we did it. It's that progress as promised sort of stamp that you put out there. And I think once you're doing that and you're being transparent in that, you'll have that trust back. But it's right now, it's going to take some work to regain that trust. And I think all of us have been critical of the city manager search, not because of who they picked, but because it set DeCarlin up at a disadvantage because people were not involved in the process.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Minchew.
Brooke, would you re-ask your question? My dogs were having a little fun in the house when I was trying to listen. So.
Yeah, of course. So many community members are concerned with the lack of communication from the council about things like ARPA funds and the last city manager's hiring. As mayor, what would you do to try and resolve this lack of trust and transparency in the community?
Okay, now, Mr. Minchew.
Well, it's disturbing to me because I'm trying to get myself educated on things so that when I come to forums like this, I could talk about whatever question might be asked of me. The climate adaptation plan, the mayor's climate action plan. And I look at the number of people that replied to things like that, it's 800 or 900 people. And so I don't know if it's because people are so busy, they don't see the notices. I'm sure the people who were involved in that attempted to get people to respond. So I think it's a double-edged sword. You want to get projects done, you want to get people's input. I think the Be Heard Colombia or Como website should be good. I fear though that the same people who have time to respond to other things will be the ones who have time to respond there. And as far as the transparency, I was critical of the city council and the mayor on the search for the city manager. Not that I wanted us to know who they were selecting or who they were interviewing, but just what was happening in the process. Because I think there's an inherent need for all of us to always hold the city council accountable. And so when I hear someone say, or not city council, but government, when I hear someone say that they're trying to get it so people will trust the government, I never want anyone to trust the government. Hold the government accountable. We need that transparency. So to me, trust is not the goal. It's transparency and getting those people engaged.
Okay, thank you. Another hand I see. Oh yeah, Alice Turner's had her hand up for quite some time.
Thank you. So we're in a worldwide crisis right now. We have a huge war going on in Europe. How this translates in the United States, many levels, but one of them is energy usage. What would you do within the city infrastructure itself to reduce energy usage? What would you do for the community to encourage this so that we're not just looking at the inflation and the cost of gas, we're looking at what we can do, like in World War II, to get through this and help Ukraine. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Mr. Minchew.
So, I helped the city when I was a contractor. I helped the city and I helped the county set up the energy efficiency program. We did energy audits on homes as part of our business. And so to me, the energy efficiency in rental homes, I know in new construction, we do a really good job with that on the new construction side. So I think if it's, I agree with you, we need to look at usage, especially with cost the way it is. So I think teaching energy efficiency has always got to be part of what the city government is involved in. The city has done a fairly good job with that. I think to me, that would be my biggest focus. It would be on that energy efficiency. As far as the city becoming more energy efficient, I would have to talk to Public Works. I'd have to talk to utility folks to find out, where they stand. Are we giving them the resources they need to be as efficient as we can be?
I can unmute myself, Leslie. I assume you're calling on me next.
All right, I muted because my clock's about to go off.
Oh.
Ms. Buffaloe, it's your turn.
Okay, so I feel unfair question. Sorry, Randy. But when I worked for the city, actually, that was, again, one of my jams at the beginning. So I think one of the things that the city had historically done was not invested in itself and its own infrastructure. So I had the privilege of doing energy audits on all of our city facilities, or working with contractors to do that, and then doing the energy efficiency improvements to help us save money. So as a result of the programs that we did, the projects that we did, we've saved over $150,000 annually on our energy bills, but there was still a list of projects to still do. So one of the things that I was always pushing at the city that I hope as mayor, I can help really be like, all right, city manager, you need to require this, was like a report card for city facilities. Like, how is this facility doing? If we do Energy Star Portfolio Manager, you can see how a building performs related to other similarly sized and used buildings. And so by knowing how it's performing, you can find those opportunities for improvement. And then at the same time, as a council member, I will see the budget. So I'm going to ask, okay, in the budget, I want to see each department's utility bill, or the utility performance, and what they're putting in to help save energy there. And then when it talks about for the community, rental, we're 52% rental housing in Colombia. And of that 52%, half of it are energy cost burden, housing cost burden households. So when I was with the city, we were looking into how do we get rental energy efficiency a priority. So part of that is going to be working with property owners to utilize the programs that we already have. So that energy performance with that home performance with Energy Star that the utility has. But also what I want to do is look at, okay, how can we have you advertise your efficiency score? And then we can look at, right now we have ARPA funds that could go towards helping fund some of those projects that are needed, because there's probably going to be a day where we're going to have a stick, and that stick is going to say you have to be more efficient or else you can't rent your property.
Thank you. Another question. Who had their hand? I know. Oh, Wiley.
Okay, well, thanks again to both the candidates for being here. Some citizens complain that there is too much violence in the city, and perhaps any violence is too much. What two operations, two things, do you think the city should engage in order to reduce violence in the city? And these would be things that you would champion and attempt to initiate.
Okay, thank you. Let's see here. This time it's Ms. Buffaloe's turn, isn't it?
Yes. So I think your question is, what would I do to help champion reduction of violence or in encouraging? Did I read that correctly?
That's close enough.
Okay, I was like, thank you. Yeah, so I think about right now, I'm involved with the Moms Demand Action Group that is advocating for gun sense legislation. And one of the things that they often talk about is this idea of the violence interruption programs, which is something that was talked about in the Mayor's Task Force on Community Violence from way back in the day. It's something that's been talked about in other communities, and it's something that right now is actually eligible for ARPA funds. And violence interruption programs are creating those champions in the communities that are working with people to within the community that might be at risk of being involved in gang behavior, violent behavior, just issues on the edge. And how do we help them build those relationships so that they work together and we interrupt that chain that's been happening kind of on standby. And so there was a really good documentary a few years ago that actually played at True False called The Interrupters. And it's based on a Chicago-based program. And they were showing the success of those programs, which is now being replicated in Kansas City and in other cities. And so right now that's been one of the discussions to help interrupt violence here. And then I also just like a quick step back, when we talk about violence and we talk about public safety, you know, one of the things that we also need to think about is the root cause of this. So this idea around how do we focus on poverty prevention programs? How do we focus on people to make sure that they have safe and healthy and affordable housing? So, and how do we make sure that we have enough workforce development so that people can stay out of poverty and hopefully, you know, be involved so that their families can thrive. So I think obviously, just like everything, it's super complicated and there's not going to be just one answer, but I think working together will help.
Well, thank you. All right, Mr. Minchew.
Well, I appreciate the question. I think part of this conversation needs to include what the role of the mayor is. And I think part of what I see is to help sort of take the handcuffs off of our local police chief so he can do the things that he needs to do, that he knows to do, and to fend off some of the political things that come his way or that come the city manager's way, to keep us from effectively, you know, putting in our community policing. The things get projected onto Colombia that happen in New York City or happen in Dallas, Texas, but they don't happen here. And so there's political strains that I see. And I think that's really a role for the mayor and for the city council to help with the city manager as he directs the police chief. I do think on a philosophical point, the issues with crime, the majority of crime is caused because of drugs. Drug use is in large part because of poverty. And so I think you've got to attack this from a lot of different angles, not just crime prevention or solving crimes, but you've also got to get to, you know, lack of education, opportunity for people who live in the margin, who we see disproportionately affected by these things. And so I think that's one of the things I love about Colombia is we have so many community associations who are working on these things. I know I help with Grade A Plus, and we tutor after school kids who live in the margin. So I think it's a variety of things that we have to do to attack this.
Well, thank you. According to my computer, it's now 1:06 p.m. and I said I would give each of you 5 minutes to tie up loose ends or whatever you want to say. And I know other people have questions. So when you've done your 5-minute tie-up, I'll turn it over back to the president and he can do whatever he wants with the additional questions. Anyway, the last person, when we opened up, Ms. Buffaloe was the first to speak. So now, Mr. Minchew, you have 5 minutes to tie up your loose ends.
Well, I won't make any promises about not talking for 5 minutes since I didn't keep that the last time. So, you know, I think when I look at city council, when I look at city government, I think we need a little bit of a change. I think we need some new ideas. I think we need to accept the fact that we've got a utility that's trying to run small businesses, a municipality that's trying to run utilities, which is, you know, that's a government trying to run small businesses. We've got some inherent problems that unless you've been in the business sector or understand the urgency of making decisions and getting things moving, unless you've done that, I don't think you can get the ball rolling the way we need to. You know, I've been sober my entire life, my entire adult life. And I've always made the comment or the joke that I can't blame anything I've ever done as an adult on being drunk or being tipsy. I've done everything I've done stone cold sober. I would say the same thing about city government. I've not been there. any program that's been there, anything that's been tried, I've not been a part of it. Any of the failures, any issues with bus systems or anything else, I've not been a part of. So I am truly fresh blood coming in to look at something with a businessman's point of view. And I think that's what we need. I would cherish the opportunity to be the chief ambassador for Columbia, Missouri. I love Columbia. I love all our amenities, our parks, all the services, all of the fun things that happen, the Roots and Blues, the film festival, all of those things that happen. That's part of what makes us an awesome college town. And I would appreciate your vote on April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Buffaloe.
Yeah. So thanks for having us out today. You know, it's been a pleasure. I am happy to see more things in person too. So, because you know me, I'm going to be the mayor that hugs probably. I think one of the things that when I hear the different candidates at the different forums, I think you're starting to see we have things that we agree on, right? Supporting city staff, supporting the smart growth of our community. We want to do that. We understand the impacts of some of the unintended consequences of our decisions. But I also think about our local control and what we have control over and how we support the projects that we do. So I disagree that that a private utility is a better role for the city of Columbia. I think what we're seeing, there are many municipalities that run really well, their utilities really well. So I think what you're seeing actually is any of the problems that you might have happen are because of when something has either become politicized or we don't have the right leadership in place to support that growth with that vision for the future. And with that is also holding the management accountable for what it is that we have these goals. What are you doing to deliver on it? And so I see cities like Austin, Texas, who their municipal utility, Austin Energy, is one of the most award-winning efficient utilities, regardless of about being municipal or private. They have some of the highest customer service. They've been able to stay on top of changes in technology, and they pay their employees well. So I think we set our goals on being one of those model utilities rather than complaining that we can't get it done. And one of the other things I think about when I think about how we as a city, who we want to be in our leadership, right now is not the time to have somebody that doesn't know how the city works. And I say that because we're having such transition right now. It's not to say that having somebody that understands how the city works that will continue to have the same problems as before, because there's lots of smart people that have been involved in the city, either on boards and commissions or as city staff or as a stakeholder who's been involved and got given feedback over the years. And they have those ideas or those opportunities for improvement. And we need to figure out how we can be more innovative with some of those reactions to that. What we don't need is somebody that's coming in with that needs on-the-job training, because our new city manager has only been with the city for 2 years. We're going to have new council member, new mayor, and then we have a lot of employee turnover within department directors. And so I think about that and I think, okay, we need somebody that knows like what is in the purview of what the mayor can do, but also who understands like what we cannot do. Because you hear a lot of promises on the campaign trail about what people want to do. And my favorite was Tuesday. Emily Spain pushed back on all of us council candidates when we were talking about doing something. She's like, yeah, y'all, but how are you going to pay for it? And I think that's key, right? That understanding of where our funding comes from and what it can go towards, but also like how we can work together to achieve some of these goals. So I obviously, I think I'm that candidate. I have also broad support in this campaign, everything from the endorsement from the Columbia Board of Realtors to the local labor union to the Sierra Club. So just thinking about that, and that's what you need. You need somebody that has those relationships in our community that will help make those bridges happen so that we can actually get action and get things done. So I'm going to stop early, Leslie, because I feel like we've talked a lot. So I'll just stop early before my timer goes off.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Well, I appreciate that. And I will turn this now back to David Mallory.
Right. Leslie, thank you so much for moderating for us again today. And I want to thank both of our speakers, Randy and Barbara. Appreciate both of y'all being here. I haven't been able to sit in personally on any of the other mayoral candidates. I'm trying candidate forums, and someone pointed out the one for the KOA News, they've got theirs recorded. So I want to see some more of those. But this is the first I've had a chance to hear from y'all. And as a poll worker, I'm going to have absentee ballot early. So I'm really starting to really want to find out these details. So sure appreciate both of you taking time out of your days to be here. It is time to go. Got a minute left. Brooke, did you have something real quick you wanted to share? A question for them?
If I could ask a question very, very quickly, it is all okay if I can't.
I would say go ahead, unless the candidates need leave, go somewhere. Our meeting officially ends at 1:15, but if they've got another minute or two, stick around. I would say let's get some information.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there are a lot of positions in City Hall that are left unhired. And as an ambassador to the city in the position of mayor, what would you do to entice these positions to be held and also kind of lower that employee turnover rate?
Okay, I don't remember who ended. Leslie, I wasn't paying attention. I've got a timer here. I can start.
It's Barbara's turn.
I think it's
All
my
right,
turn to
Barbara.
go first.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
let me reset my timer though. We had
Oh,
5
yeah.
minutes. You won't go on too long. Yeah, so one of the ways that we can do better with retention, or I'm sorry, with hiring, is how we advertise. So Columbia Public Schools does this really cool program called Grow Your Own. And they start it young. Like Monica Naylor is one of my friends, and she talks about how they started the program with youth and get them excited about this idea of you can have a job with Columbia Public Schools, you could be a teacher. And their main goal for it is actually to increase diversity within their employers or their employees. And so I think about our CARES program, right? Our CARES program is not just for City of Columbia, like programs there, but it includes that. So I actually had a CARES student one year working with my office. Actually, every summer we would have a CARES student working with our office to kind of see what does the Office of Sustainability do, and how do we do environmental education? And this is a career you can get into. And so I think there's that potential of helping grow your own, but obviously that's a long game. So as the mayor is both to help, encourage that sort of program and the growth there, but then also is to help be that ambassador to encourage people to show it's a good place to work. And I think to show it's a good place to work, one of the first things you have to do is make sure you're paying a living wage. So making sure that our pay is so that we can have families, husbands, wives, moms, dads working for the city. So having that living wage. And then the other thing with the city is that actually retention is one of the other difficulties. So you need to make sure that it is an engaging workforce that listens to the people, that managers listen to their employees, and that they're supportive. So part of that is through HR having like affinity groups so that you can get together with others who are, similar to you, so that you have that sort of sponsorship within the community. And then also the benefits that we offer and how we support people. So one of the things that was hard for me was that I was a young mom when I worked for the City of Columbia, and we don't have paid maternity leave. So I think as a role of a mayor, one of the things we can do is help encourage programs and policies that support families where they are. And as somebody who had to take care of their parents, my mom has dementia, paid support for those sort of programs too. So I think I'm at my time.
Good, thank you. Mr. Minchew.
I think about this within our company, and if I were faced with a question like this within our company, I would have a lot of people mad at me if I started trying to fix the problems that you're talking about from the position that I hold, because that's not what I was hired to do. That's not my role. So as mayor, when I think about this, I think the thing we'd have to do is have the city manager pull together a work study, and let's look at the people who are attempting to get these people hired and find out what is holding back. Why aren't we getting that done? So I might have some ideas on how to solve that, but I would imagine that the people who are trying to do this right now, the last thing they want to hear is me explaining to them what I would do or why they haven't, why they've beat their head against the wall trying to get people hired. I'd want to know what they've already tried, just from an efficiency standpoint. So I think that's a big difference between what I do, what I would do as mayor. I think it's a difference in quite frankly, in the two candidates, because I believe we're electing a mayor, not an additional city manager. So for me, I would want to know from that staff, what's holding us back? Because we're obviously not getting this accomplished.
Very good. Well, thank you, both of you. Appreciate both of you all being here again. Thank you so much. Our time is up. Again, I'm going to go ahead and officially end the meeting. I'm going to go ahead and slip out. I've got somewhere else to go. But if our candidates want to stick around and if someone wants to sit down and chat with them, say we still have the Zoom if it's available. So thank you all very much. Remember to come back next week if it's where you can. We'll hear from the other two mayoral candidates, Tanya Heath and David Seaman. And with that, I'll see y'all. Carl,